Like the same day or week that Expedition 33 was launching, they shadow dropped Oblivion. And that game was still able to, I think, ship like, or at least sell 500,000 copies, and did, I think, 1 million within its first week as far as copies sold. Right? Like, that's incredible. And then what came out of that is GOTY candidate. This is right now the game of the year. Like, that's exceptional. And that person and a bunch of other talented people were twisting away at Ubisoft working on Far Cry 7 or God knows what else they have cooking up over there. You know what I'm saying? Like, hello and welcome to level 134 of the Thoughts and Players podcast, the gaming podcast with both takes and no strings attached. I am Jeremy, here with my compadre, David.
What up?
What's
off, but I'll take it.
You got there. You got there. Yeah. How's it going?
It's going. I was rudely awoken because I was napping by my partner. She was like, "Hey, get up. It's time to record." I was like, it took her like 15 minutes to wake me up. It was crazy. Yeah. And I was out, she said. How's your day been?
It's been good. I not as recently, but I was able to catch a nice little, I want to say 5-minute nap kind of that happened or went down earlier today, but it was an energy booster. It was helpful. So I was able to get a bunch of stuff done, got a bunch of work done, and was able to get a bunch of other stuff done around the house. So that was helpful. And then I had a great dinner. I had 2 soups. It was great. 2 different types of soups. I had a lemon rice soup, and then I had a lamb chili, both great. I'm a soup lover, so if your boys can experience the world of soups in one meal, I'll take it.
Yeah, right. And that's funny because I'm the exact opposite. I'm not a fan of soup at all.
Yeah. I think before when we met, we've had this talk with your partner where she's trying to introduce you. She's trying to get you with the world of soups, and you're just not with it.
Here's a funny story. My friend is pretty much a chef. Like, he made this homemade soup. I forget what everything that was in it, but everything was homemade, down to even like the gravy.
Yeah.
Right? And everything. And people were raving over this soup. It was gone the first time he made it. Well, the second time they had some leftovers and he brought it over my house because we were having like a game night or whatever.
Yeah.
And my partner ate the crap out of it. His partner ate the crap out of it. They were like, "Just try it. Try it." I'm like, "I don't like soup." And they're like, "Just try it." So I tried a bite. I wanted to throw up. And my friend is like one of the best cooks I've ever met. Everything he's ever made me has been divine, like 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I know it's not the soup that was bad. It's just that I hate soup that much, and I don't know why.
That's interesting. Yeah, my partner, she does a really good butternut squash soup. And then I like to do a potato soup. That's kind of my go-to thing.
That sounds good.
The potato soup?
Yeah.
It's really good.
And I probably won't like it.
Yeah. Different strokes for different folks, as they said back in the 80s or 70s or whenever different strokes is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, chickens, ducks, and hens, welcome to this level of the pod, level 134. We got some interesting topics and things to talk about, but first, we're going to start, as we always do, talking about the games that we're playing. So, who wants to start that off? I can start that off if we want, because I think what I'll talk about will expand on a little further. But I have been chiefly playing, most if not all my play hours have gone into, once again, closing shut the jaws of Oblivion. I love saying it every time. I say it all the time. I was talking to my therapist earlier, and he asked, "What have you been doing?" And I'm like, "I've been closing shut the jaws of Oblivion." It's just a great phrase to say. But that's what I've been doing, is playing Oblivion. Loving it.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
I saw that this was out, and I was like, I hope he's had time to play this game.
And here's the thing. A lot of people have been saying because it looks so much better than the original. A lot of people were saying like this classifies as like a remake almost. Like that's how much of an update they've made. They're saying it's just a remaster, but it looks like an update. And it's like it looks like a remake. It plays like a remaster. The people who did it made sure to leave. It's almost all the original code is intact. They went through. I was reading an article like if you actually went through the Steam files of like buying the original Skyrim or not original Skyrim, the original Oblivion, in this one, a lot of the game files they're in the same structure and sequence.
That's really cool.
Like you know what I'm saying, like you can almost dissect it and it look part for part. So yes, it is that, which also means that not all, but much, 90% of the jank from this 20-year-old game is still in it.
I've been seeing some videos like, oh, this is so authentic. They kept this thing and this thing.
Yeah.
And definitely should have fixed it, but it keeps it authentic.
Oh yeah, like I was completing one of the I can't remember if it's called the Hero of Kavach storyline, but with the Battle of Kavach storyline where you're having to go and get one of the they're not called spires, but I have like Fable in the brain too, so I'm just gonna call it a spire or a sigil key or something from the Duke. And it still has this bug where you're fighting through and you get to the courtyard and then like the main captain you're talking to bugs and he's like, we have to clear the courtyard, even though you've cleared the courtyard. And you have to just go and grab the key off the Duke's off the Count's body and then bring it back. And then once you bring it back to him, he's like, we've cleared it. I'm done fighting. I'm going to retire now. You can take my armor. And it's like, yes, I forgot that was a bug that was in this game 20 years ago. And they still has it there. So that's mostly what I've been playing. I have wanted to fire up and try to get through Rise of Ronin. I was making such good progress on it, really enjoying the game. And I will also admit that what came in my mail this past week was a little game I talked about before. Finally went ahead and pulled the trigger on. That game is Dynasty Warriors Origins. I finally got it.
Yeah.
Still in the wrapper because, as I said, I'm sticking to my rule, game in, game out.
Right.
That's the rule.
Right.
So that's not getting played until Rise of Ronin is finished. I feel like I will finish Rise of Ronin way before I finish Oblivion because I'm going to do multiple playthroughs of Oblivion. So I'm not going to leave myself up for that. But once it's done, I'm firing up. I'm putting Dynasty Warriors Origins into the PlayStation 5 because of a lot of recent choices. It just makes sense to have a PlayStation 5 and play everything on PlayStation 5, right? Mm-hmm. I will probably in next year or two or whatever, people get ready to play Gears of War on a PlayStation 5.
I saw that.
So that's next up. But besides that, mostly I've been closing shut them jaws. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been playing. How about you?
I'm glad. I was afraid you would say, I've downloaded it but never played it. I was playing this game.
But man, it was such a hectic week. Yeah, such a hectic week.
I don't doubt it. For me, mostly Rivals. I hit Diamond again, trying to get back up because it was the season reset,
Mm-hmm.
So got that. I played a little bit of Apex because of my son. He's been playing it quite a bit. He's gotten so much better at this point. He's carrying me during the games more often than I'm carrying him.
Oh yeah, passing to the baton, huh?
It is crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that it's happening as fast as it is.
He's going to get better, and you may actually get worse. That's the scary.
Exactly.
Isn't that
exactly. We're at the tipping point right now.
Yeah.
This is he carries, I carry. He carries, I carry. But
yeah,
this is the best point right now because, as you said, he's getting better. I'm getting worse. But so played that a little bit. They brought arenas back on Apex, which was my favorite game type because it's just a team of 3 versus a team of 3, and you get these coins that you can buy your weapons, kind of like Counter-Strike, right?
Yeah.
You get the money and stuff, and you get the rounds. So that was fun. And they have a new character, and he's based on a bow. I don't know. I didn't play him much.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much. Well, I've been playing the Pokemon Pocket game a lot. They was ranked in that
Yeah.
one, so I've been playing that quite a bit.
Okay.
But that's about it. That's what I've been playing.
Nice. Playing the hits. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Playing the hits from a year ago or playing the hits from 20 years ago that decided to come back, right? That's cool.
A hit's a hit.
Hit's a hit.
That's right.
My topic for today is actually just kind of me expanding on that hit and talking about it and kind of reflecting on some experiences with it. I think I said in the previous level that Elder Scrolls is one of my favorite series, right? And when I think about outside of like I keep forgetting the first two. And I should look those up just to make sure I'm giving them their due. So let's see here. It's the first two games just to make sure that I've got it right. There we go. So you have the Elder Scrolls Legends and then Elder Scrolls Daggerfall. And Daggerfall is I think an introduction for a lot of people. Daggerfall has arguably the largest still, or one of the largest game worlds ever created. It's absolutely insane.
Really?
Yeah, but I got my intro and my jump in on Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I talk about that's like one of my favorite games. It's in my top 5.
Right.
And I've always talked about between these later games of 3, 4, and 5, that 3 is my favorite. Morrowind is my favorite because of the world, because of the lore and the quest building and all these different things that you can do, these different guilds you can join. Skyrim is the one that I probably put the most amount of time into because it was so much to do. It was so big, so influential. But the Elder Scrolls game that I have the most distinct core memories and moments in my memory dedicated to is the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. So it's cool to jump back into that and re-experience some of these moments as someone with more wisdom and more insight into things and just trying to figure them out. I will say that going back, one of the things that I've realized going back, playing the same quests, and playing the same thing, obviously, like it's riding a bike. Some things you just start playing and it's just like I know exactly what's going on. You have to I'm right now having to deal with the feeling of, oh, this is like riding a bike. I know exactly what's going on. With also for some if I think this is really specific with role-playing games too, but maybe like role-playing games and platformers, I feel like this is the most obvious. Where it's also like, did I get dumber? Because there's other things that I felt like I just immediately got and clicked when I initially was playing it versus now where I'm like having to take a minute to be like, wait, what? You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's the same way with a platformer. Like it's like the, you know how they say like in sports, you know, like the wily veteran, right? Like, you know, the minutia, you know, the nuance of it, but the pure talent has degraded, right? And it like platformers, it feels like that a lot, right? Like I understand how to play Mario better than I did when I was younger, but pure talent of of like quickness with pushing the button, whether muscle memory, different things like that. Like that's not what it used to be, right? So I'm having to recalibrate how I approach and think of different things. And so that's been an interesting thing to experience this as well, because I know this game so well. You know, I wouldn't say inside and out. I probably know Skyrim a little better because I've just put so much more time into it, but still like certain things where I'm like, oh man, like taking a minute to understand. Like I remember one of the things about Oblivion that's interesting, and that a lot of people seem to be kind of gravitating. Like a lot of people have been playing Oblivion, and they're like, "Oh, Oblivion actually has like more interesting ideas than Skyrim in some ways." And it's like, yes, it does. But one of Oblivion's weird things, and Oblivion has a few weird things. One of its is its I don't know, it's dialogue system, I guess, because it's kind of like a dial, right? There's a dial, and the dial usually has 4 options, right? It can be coerce, joke, admire, and I don't know, bully or whatever it is, right? And you have to, in each choice, either raises or lowers your rapport with someone, and you have to figure out the best sequence to get the best overall raise and lowering of the rapport by the time you're done with the conversation. I remember when I was playing it a long time ago, that system clicked. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I get it, right? I'm doing it now, and I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. This system makes no sense, right? So it was. I'm
Right.
kind of like, why did it click so easy back then, and now it makes absolutely no sense? And again, it's the same type of system. It's the same approach. They haven't changed the system, right? But I've changed.
Right.
My how I'm going about it changes, right? There's like another thing that people kind of either love or hate about Oblivion is the lock picking system, because the lock picking system is different, right? That's an example of like when I played it back in the day, it made perfect sense, and I'm playing it now and it makes perfect sense. I'm like, oh, this is easy, right? I think I like it because it just feels easy. I get the concept of it. So that's like another thing that's like really interesting, where there's one system that clicked with me that it just mystifies me now, and then another system that clicked with me and it still clicks and I get it 100%. That's been like a really interesting thing to kind of just like interesting things to experience it as I'm going back and playing this game, right? But I think one of the things that that I really didn't appreciate that much about Oblivion until now, going back to it compared to Skyrim, is the writing of the game. And again, I'm 8 so hours back into it, but obviously I've played this game for dozens of, not hundreds of hours.
Right.
I forgot how strong the writing of Oblivion is, even compared to Skyrim. I just forgot how strong it was. I always talked about how Oblivion had like one of my favorite quests of all is the quest of the Dark Brotherhood in that game, and that's a great example of just absolutely incredible game writing from a narrative and quest standpoint. But
Right.
even like the main quest and all these other different side quests that pop up, the writing is so strong, and you get so immersed in the world and what these characters are doing, and it's like, oh man, yeah, I forgot how much I really appreciated that. And yeah, it kind of makes you pine for, especially having played. I didn't play a ton of Avowed. I played about maybe an hour or two. I played enough of it to know that the writing isn't there, because in those initial hours is where the writing needs to be the strongest, and the writing just isn't there. And that you don't get that sense with Oblivion. Oblivion, the writing gets you. I said it earlier, right? That famous phrase, in close shut the jaws of Oblivion. It's such a great, strong, like just like great phrase to get you into that game. It sets the tone of what it's all about. So yeah, that's something that's definitely been there. I'm like noticing, and I'm like, yeah, this is something that was great. It's something that now, after playing so many more games, playing so many more RPGs, that I'm starting to appreciate. It's one of the things I've learned to appreciate with JRPGs, which I didn't really like to play when I was younger, is that a lot of those have really cool, zany, but cool, interesting writing that gets you invested in those characters. Final Fantasy 16, great writing, front to back, great writing the entire game. Even like a dragon, great writing, super weird in spots, but great writing, right? There's like there's a quest where you're having to there's a quest where you run in. I think we've posted clips of it on our social, like one of the scenes where it's like a side quest where you're having to walk into this place and it's a bunch of adult men as babies, like doing their thing. It's like,
I remember
what?
you posting that.
Yeah, great writing though. Great writing for that side quest. That was like it was so cool. But that's again going back to Oblivion, right? And like Oblivion, I'm playing Oblivion. I'm like, man, this makes me want them. And a lot of people mentioned it, and like you see memes and stuff. Like this makes me want them to, for sure. There's been rumors that they're doing a similar treatment to Fallout 3. I was never the biggest fan of Fallout 3, but seeing what they did with Oblivion, and it just reminds me of the writing, and I'm like, yeah, Fallout 3 is where it's at. I would love. I mean, obviously, I would prefer they do this treatment to Morrowind next, but that may be too hot. That may be something they wait another year or two to do, while they're taking 20 years to make Elder Scrolls 6.
Right.
But like again, like Fallout New Vegas, right? It's another Fallout gets talked about a lot by Obsidian because of the writing in that game, and it's like, oh god, like it's so great. Obviously, Oblivion, it's a remaster, not a remake. So it still has, I mentioned, some of its bugs. It still has its quirk. The leveling system, it's still there. It's still dumb. The world levels up with you. It's just dumb. That means that if you play a quest and you get a sword at level 1, that sword will have level 1 stats throughout the entirety of the world and throughout the entirety of your playthrough. So as you level up to level 20, 30, 40, 50, that sword still has level 1 stats. It does not level with you. Makes no sense. And also the world and quests level up with you. So as you level up, the types of enemies and the difficulty of enemies level up. That's why some of they say like some quests you should do earlier on because they're just easier to complete because they're leveled with you, right? That's dumb. They didn't do that in Skyrim. That's one of the big things they fixed in Skyrim. That's one of the things that makes Skyrim's better in many aspects, right? And there's some other improvements they did, but some of those quirks are still there. I am willing to forgive that based on the entirety of the experience that I'm having. Again, the people bug out, and the NPCs do weird stuff like they did back in the day. It is a 20-year-old game with a new coat of polish on it. And it's great.
Really cool.
Yeah, we've talked about before. I mean, for one, I've noticed in the past week or two that this game's been out. Everyone's been talking about Oblivion, and everyone's been talking about how we want Fallout New Vegas next, and we want Morrowind next, and we want this and that and that. And I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, poor Starfield, no one is talking about you at all. Everyone's completely forgot about you. Yeah, and the proof is in the pudding, man. You know, I think that Bethesda's approach to world building fits more of a fantasy setting anyway compared to a sci-fi setting. But yeah, that's the markers. You know, you just gotta embrace that, and so I think they've done a great job with this.
I agree.
And yeah, just looking forward to putting more and more hours into it. Again, this was one thing where I was very happy to have hung on to my Xbox Game Pass subscription because I was able to grab this bad boy day one. Now it is a $50 remaster, and that's great. $50 remaster. So not full price, still pretty pricey for a 20-year-old game, but I think the game has shown that it's worth that price. I think it's worth that. Of course, I'm speaking from a totally biased position, but I think the game you get and what it looks like, it's 2024 of 2025-ish presentation for a 20-year-old game that still gives you more than many games do now. So, yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome.
I'm glad they did right by it, you know, because even though we do sit here and say, hey, we want this remake, we want this remaster, when it's all said and done, when they actually do it, are we going to be satisfied?
Yeah.
You know, and it seems to be overall, most people that played the original are big fans of this one.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another thing too, like that also because there's other news that kind of came along with this, and it had me thinking, right? Because you and I have talked before about, even though we say we love a remaster or a remake or whatever, right? To me, it's only to a certain point, because I've always said, well, I value gaming companies trying new IPs, trying new ideas. It's the same thing I'd say for like movies, right? That's been shown, I think, in both the game space and the movie space, that audiences, though they say that, aren't really doing that, right? Like movies have had a lot of new IP movies that have come out that have done poor in the box office, yet remakes and remasters are making more money. And that seems to be mostly the case with this, right? Like Starfield came out, and I'm sure it did its numbers, right? But there's nowhere near the fervor for it as it is like this remaster for Oblivion, right? I think larger companies and larger studios, like movie studios and like larger video game companies, maybe they do need to take a step back and just start and revisit these older games for remakes and remasters, and leave the new ideas to smaller devs and smaller studios. So an example of that would be, so for movies, right, a lot of bombs, the remakes and remasters have been doing great, right? No new interesting IPs. Well, there was a movie that came out called Sinners, right? That was directed by Ryan Coogler starring Michael B. Jordan, right?
Yep.
Rave reviews. People loved it, right?
Yeah, my partner loved it.
Smaller in scope, a really interesting new IP, right? The same for gaming, right? You have all these other big gaming studios that came out with these different ideas and different things like that. And so far it's been pretty good this year, but you know what dropped around the same time as Oblivion Remastered was, and I can't remember the first name because it's like an actual name, but essentially the sync it to Expedition 33, which was like this.
I knew this was the game.
This smaller turn-based RPG developed by a team of 30-something odd developers, right? That does some interesting new ideas with turn-based combat and RPGs, right? Like that's where the innovation happens. Maybe we should leave it there because BioWare is out here crapping out new Dragon Ages and it sucks, right?
Right.
And meanwhile, you have this smaller team, more nimble team sitting and incubating on interesting new ideas, and they're coming up with the things that are going to help push genres, right? Like we're not. We have to. I think we as gamers and whatever as media people need to come to the conclusion that, and I did this with gaming, like with Madden, right? We'd ask for so many of these new different things, and I kind of came to the conclusion that maybe they just ain't got it. Maybe they just can't do it. And that's kind of the conclusion I'm coming to a lot with this. Like maybe these studios just ain't got it. Maybe EA just ain't got it to make a great AAA game anymore, right? Like maybe they just ain't got it. Maybe it's the same for Ubisoft, even though by all accounts, Assassin's Creed Shadows is pretty good, right? It's the smaller ones that we got to look at.
Right.
It's Expedition 33, Do
you want to hear the story behind Expedition 33?
Yeah.
Okay, so I read it, did not look into it, so I guess we'll take it with a grain of salt. But the main person who made Expedition 33 is because they were bored at, I believe it was Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Because they're just making the same games, and he was bored. He was literally bored at work, which is designing video games, and decided to make his own video game on his own time. And it is an instant fan just raging about it, right?
Right.
People are like, oh my God, this is game of the year. And the people that we have making these, quote unquote, AAA games are just people stuck in the gears of things by the higher up saying, hey, we need this money milker. Hey, I need another Call of Duty.
Right.
Like obviously, sure, yeah, your business, you want to keep the revenue going, have a team do that, and cycle the team out every year or whatever. But like we have these kind of creations, this kind of mind and capabilities in these people working in these jobs, and we're stuck with this crap.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean by maybe they just ain't got it. When I'm saying they ain't got it, I'm not talking about the devs because I don't know what their capacity or what their talent is. I'm talking about the structure and philosophy of these companies hinders any type of innovation like that from happening. So that's what's going to happen, right? That's what's going to happen is that someone that's bored at working at Ubisoft or working at EA or working at Activision Blizzard, right, is going to leave and they're going to try to make and do their own thing. There's been a multitude of Activision Blizzard or ex-Blizzard devs that have left to make RTS successors to StarCraft, right? Like because they're just unfulfilled with what Activision Blizzard is doing now. Unfortunately, all those attempts have failed, but there's people that have been trying to do it, right? And so I feel like that's exactly going to be the same thing. And like you said, you have to think about how good a game has to be a small game like that is coming out and then literally has a legendary game get a shadow drop on its same launch day or launch week. Like the same day or week that Expedition 33 was launching, they shadow dropped Oblivion. And that game was still able to, I think, ship like, or at least sell 500,000 copies and did, I think, 1 million within its first week as far as copies sold. Right? Like that's incredible. And then what came out of that is GOTY candidate. This is right now the game of the year. Like that's exceptional. And that person and a bunch of other talented people were twisting away at Ubisoft working on Far Cry 7 or God knows what else they have cooking up over there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's insane to think about, but that's where the innovation is going to happen, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like you're not going to get incredible, innovative, cool ideas from Disney or from, Netflix or something like that, right? You're going to get it from Blumhouse. You're going to get it from I don't know if Annapurna is, I can't remember if that's video game or film, right? Or A24, so I think is what I mean.
Like, that's what I was going to say, A24.
You're going to get it from someplace like that. You're not going to get it from, because they ain't got it. They don't allow the creatives to embrace the vision they have. They have all these different constraints and they have different intent. And you and I know what that intentions are. We got to make money. We got to please stockholders. So we're going to play it safe. Right. And everyone's like, okay, well, you guys suck at that. So I guess just give me another Marvel movie. I guess. Because you guys can't make anything else interesting. Right.
Right.
I mean, they got Dizzy screwing the pooch on freaking Snow White. I don't even know how you screw up Snow White as if you're Disney. That's literally you.
That's
like, Disney is built on the back of Mickey Mouse and Snow White. Like I don't understand how you do that, but you did it, right? I think it's the same thing with games.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my conclusion on my experience with Oblivion. It's been great.
Okay. That's good. I'm glad it worked out this time. I guess we can move on to my topic.
Yeah.
So my topic, a little backstory. I went and watched the movie Until Dawn yesterday.
Yes.
Now it's based off a PlayStation game, right?
A very well-received PlayStation game.
Yes.
Very beloved,
I've never played it myself. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just knew that it was like a horror movie. To be technical, it's like a psychological horror or something. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was really good. Like if I had to go based out of 10, like I would give it like 8.5, 9.
Okay.
Right? But if I played the game and watched it, would I feel the same way? Right?
Yeah.
So I looked up the ratings, and the average rating is 3.9 with, a lot of 5 stars. Mm-hmm. But there is more 1-star reviews than 3 and 2-star reviews combined. And then in a separate matter, there's more 1-star reviews than there is 4-star reviews. But 5 stars do just knock it out of the park. And I believe the 1-star reviews are probably mostly people who have played the game.
Yeah.
So when we play the substance material, do we have a biased opinion on stuff being made from it? Like Resident Evil movies, the series at least, with Alice and stuff. A lot of people do not like those movies.
Yeah.
I'm a fan myself because I'm, it's not one of the games I played. It's its own entity. It's just in the same mind frame of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think playing the source material has a effect on how we view what we watch?
Yes. I think it definitely plays a part. One thing that I want to note I find really interesting with the whole Until Dawn thing is that Until Dawn was a game that was kind of meant to play like a horror movie. And so I find it interesting that they made a horror movie to emulate a game that emulates a horror movie. That's really interesting.
Right.
But yes, as far as that, like for sure, I think I kind of like it's the same with like people who go see movies that are, book adaptations, right? Like you come into it. Some people can come into it with a different perspective of like you were saying with the Resident Evil movies, right? Like I view it as its own thing, as its own entity. But I think for a lot of people, it's harder to do that. For me, for sure, it's harder to do. Which is why I think when things are deemed to be so great, that they really are great. So I think we see this playing out a little bit with a television show based on a game we both really love. When you look at that, when you think about what you heard about the first season of The Last of Us, it was everyone loved it. People who had never played the game and people who had played the game loved it. That's rare. That's extremely rare because the people who are serious are judging it just as the work on itself. And the people who have played the game before are judging it not only as its own work, but how it adds to the work that that is based off of that it's emulating in some way, shape, or form, right? How faithful is it, or if it chooses to not be faithful, does it do something interesting with how it chooses to twist and expound on things? And so you have something like that happening. I'm not sure if you've been watching or keeping up with the reactions to season 2. It's a little diff.
Yeah,
it's a little diff.
It's definitely back to normal.
Yeah, it's a little diff. And so you kind of have that thing happening there. For me personally, like, it just ends up that a lot of times they don't do good jobs with movies based on video games. But yeah, I for sure probably went into watching the Assassin's Creed movie with a more critical eye than someone that just went in to watch a movie. Now, unfortunately, we both would have came in out of that with, oh, this movie sucks. So that's a great example, because if you're someone that's never played Assassin's Creed, you'd walk out and say that movie sucks. And if you're someone like me that loves that series, especially at that point, right, and went into it, I was not only did I realize the movie sucked, I was kind of pissed with, like, you chose to do this with this IP, you chose to do this with this game. It's a whole another added layer of investment. So I think we do come into it with a bit of a different idea and a bit more critical of it. It's harder to view things as its own entity, right? It depends on how invested you are too, right? So another example, I think, of a show that was received well by people who hadn't played the game and who had played the game is the Fallout series.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say.
That was really well received. So when I hear something like that, then to me that's like, oh, this must be good. Because if you've got freaking trolls and keyboard warriors also saying that this show was great and is based off of a video game they love, then it's like, oh, then they really knocked it out of the park, because they're coming in with a whole different level of scrutiny and criticism based upon this thing that they have their own experience with. You go into you're going into a show with a book, right? With the experience, with a relationship with these characters in this world that's already been developed over multitudes of time, and now someone else is realizing it in their own different way, right? So yeah, I think it definitely has a huge impact. And I also think that it comes in a little differently for us as gamers that are seeing movies based off of games, because we've seen video game based movies be disrespected so much. So it's a little bit different for people that like come in with book adaptations, right? It's hit or miss, but usually they're given some type of respect. We all remember the Super Mario movie. Even if we haven't watched it, we understand what that was, right? Wait a minute, you got freaking John Leguizamo as Mario? What? Right? We understand the mistreatment of it. We understand the Dead or Alive video games, the Doom video game with The Rock, and all this other trash that you put in front of us. So I think even more so, we're like, you guys keep coming with this disrespect, we're going to be super, critical and on top of you what you do, right? It was the same thing. It was the same thing with comic book movies until recently, until Iron Man, right? So what, 15, 17 years ago, it was kind of the same thing. Every time you guys try to make a movie based off of superheroes, it's some disrespectful BS going on. And then they finally nailed it. They got this messaging and the cadence right. And now we have a completely different perception of what superhero movies are compared to what we thought they were 20 years ago. And I think video games are maybe getting there, but we're still going to come at it at that angle of like, hey, this is my game. I have a relationship with this. You guys crap on video game movies all the time. I don't trust you. You've got to prove it,
Yeah, I mean, there's not much left for me to say. I mean, you did a terrific job on that. I also agree that when you've played the source material, you're more critical of the choices they make in the movies or the TV shows and stuff like that. And even though it might not be exactly the same, they can do it correctly and still give you what you want. Like what I'm thinking of right now is like the Twisted Metal series.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's literally you just run around in your car killing people, and then you get this story at the end, right? There's no character build-ups, you don't really get any kind of lore or anything until the very end. But they did a terrific job with the series. You follow this one person, and you're learning their story. You run into all these people that you know. They might not have the names that they do in the video game per
Mm-hmm.
se, but
Mm-hmm.
they're there, and I think it's really cool. So I agree. You are going to be more critical on stuff that's made on things that you've played into movies, but I also feel if you're not so anally critical about it, you can still find the good in it, unless it's really bad, like the Avatar movie.
Yeah. 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 What about like I was just thinking like what do you think of like so one thing that hit me because there's also I think video game movies and Until Dawn is like the exception of being like a movie based off a video game, right? It seems like they've been pivoting a lot to having video games be series, I think, because video games usually spend so much time world building and lore building, right?
Right.
Uh, but what do you think of something like, and the reason I ask this is because I've watched it. I love the first couple of seasons of the series, but something like The Witcher, right? The Witcher is tricky because The Witcher is you could The Witcher is most known as a video game series, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a video game series based off a series of novels. So you when you have a show, right? The show is kind of picking and choosing what lane they lean into for story reasons. So there might
Right.
be some episodes or one season where they lean a little bit more into the book material, right? And then they lean a little bit more into the video game material, right? Um that's where like something like that can get a little bit tricky, right? Because there's so many things that can be written that there's some games that end up having either they're based off books or they may have a lot of things written about them outside of their games that add to the
Mm-hmm.
lore and the story, right? So I'm thinking of something too of like I mean like the Elder Scrolls has a lot of stuff that's been written about it around the games that are not exactly 100% in the games, right? um yeah, I guess like that adds a different level of complexity too, because it's kind of like, well, which does it feel like one fan base is more justified over the other over being upset with something? Like if we're upset with something that's happening in The Witcher, like, but if it's more faithful to the books compared to the games, like, I mean, do I really have a right to be complaining about that because it is being faithful to a source material, just not the source,
Right.
material that I have a connection to, right?
Exactly. But I also agree. Witcher, the first two seasons are great, but that's why Henry got kind of cut because he wanted to stay true to the source materials, and the
Yeah,
writers kind of didn't want to. So now we have whatever his face is, the brother. I
yeah,
didn't even bother watching that season. I'm not gonna.
yeah. I can't remember when it comes out, but they were talking about some other things too with that. That's really weird, like weird choices. I'm like, I don't know how you guys. I don't know. It's it's very reminiscent of like the last season of Game of Thrones, where like, why are you squandering something so good? Like, I don't even understand how you're doing that. You know,
Right.
um,
Exactly.
that show was like it was so good. You know what
It
I'm saying?
was.
And then it's weird. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's like yeah for sure definitely a critical. I think in that aspect I really kind of compare gamers with like people who read the books and they go see the movies, but I think that we have more of a right to have a chip on our shoulder about it because they've done video game movies so dirty for so long and still do. Like the
Very true.
Assassin's Creed movie wasn't that long ago. We're talking maybe 2016, 2015 maybe. And
Right.
there's been other video game shows and series that have not done well. I mean, yeah, Fallout did good. The Last of Us first season, people loved it. I by all accounts, people were not big fans of Halo. I think some people even forget they did a Halo TV series, which is
I
crazy.
did.
Halo was one of the most distinguishable game franchises in history. They made a
Yep.
show about it. No one remembers. No one cares. And the people that did watch it were like, "This sucks. Get it off the air." Um, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see the treatment of it going forward. But I think we do have a right to have a little bit more of a chip on our shoulder when it comes to these movies. They just haven't got it right.
Right.
and sometimes even the TV shows. Like, it's great that they're doing it with, you know, Twisted Metal. They need to just make sure they're keeping a straight head on that. And the fact that it has Captain America in it, you know, that may help with keeping things locked in. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, but well, I mean, yeah, we'll see. It's tough. There's even you get emotionally invested. Like, for example, there's been rumors. I think it's been confirmed that it's happening. They're making a Ghost of Tsushima movie. Oh. And my first reaction was, God, no.
Right. And even, it's like, oh, God.
And even after hearing the people, like some of the people who are involved in it creatively, like the director of this movie is going to be the director of the John Wick series. So we're talking about this movie is going to have at least exceptional action sequences. Mm-hmm. And I'm still not. I'm not saying God no, but I'm not saying God no. That's kind of like where I'm at with it, right? Like, I could take it, or like I can. You know what? I can't take it or leave it. I can leave it. Just leave it. I still say just leave it alone. But so, you know, we'll see with stuff like that. But I'd imagine it's like that for anyone with games. They're working on the Bloodborne movie, I'm sure, or any kind of like, you know, Dark Souls type thing. I'm sure they'd be like, oh no. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because there's a lot of build up and like leveling up and stuff in that game. That I think that would be kind of hard to. At least it would feel like something's missing.
Well, see, I feel like with like the Dark Souls, Bloodborne type, like all the From Software games, I feel like those would lend great to movies or TV series because they do so little narrative in them. It's all just lore and world building. So if you just give me this world, we can put a story in it, and then it's fine, right?
Okay.
If you understand how to write a narrative, right? Right. That's important. That's the key. They didn't give you that, like they did with The Last of Us. They didn't give you a great story, so you have to build that. But I feel like that's an ample ground to build a great narrative and story on, because there's so much space for you to do different things with, you know, compared to something that has a linear story like Ghost of Tsushima. You got to know the story. You got to know Jin Sakai's story. If you don't, everybody's going to be pissed off, including me, for sure. So you got to figure that out, you know. I think it's the same with Twisted Metal, right? Like you mentioned, like there's little bits of story. It's mostly just a lot of world building and lore. So you have space to build these stories within this world and lore that can make it really interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I can't remember if there were any other like video game movies that were announced or coming out. I'm sure there are, and I can't remember all of them. But yes,
it's hard to keep track.
It is cool to see Until Dawn getting some love though, because I remember when that came out, it was very well received. And again, they were trying to do I don't know if like I Know What You Did Last Summer type of vibe. I don't know, but I know it was trying to emulate that horror movie feel in video game form, and it did so really well. And the fact that they made a horror movie based on the game emulating a horror movie is interesting.
A box and a box and a box.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess with that out the way, that leads us to final thoughts. So we can offer a final thought about anything related or unrelated to the podcast episode. So who's giving a final thought first?
I'll go.
Okay.
So I've been playing trading card games since I was before a teenager, right? Started with Pokemon, everything. And something I've always wanted to do, I wanted to buy someone's entire collection off of them. And I was able to do that recently. My friend was getting out of the game because him and his partner would do it together, and they're not together anymore. So he's just like, I'm just trying to get rid of him. Yeah. So I was like, hey, I'm interested, you know. So we had some talk and blah blah blah, and figured everything out. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I don't know if you can see them, but there's like a crate down here.
Okay.
In the video version, at least.
I see a binder.
Yeah. So there's a lot. I still haven't gone through these, but I've gone through a lot of binders and stuff. Like it's really fun and interesting to see how people do the same thing you do, but they organize it in a different way and stuff.
Yeah.
So I've completed a bucket list item.
Oh, there you go.
So that's my final thought.
Oh man, that reminds me of my final thought. I'll kind of piggyback off of that. Not necessarily even trading cards, like you said, but the interesting way that people kind of organize and prioritize things. I found that out playing multiplayer games. Well, not multiple, but like multiplayer, yes, but like survival games. And one of the things that I'm thinking about distinctly is that there was a phase where not a phase, but there was a period of time where me, my partner, and her brother were all playing Valheim together. You know, you get your chests and your minerals and different things, and just the different ways that people organize chests, right, with certain things. Even if it was meant for the same types of minerals, like the way they would stack them in there differently, what was prioritized in each slot, right? The different ways that people would like build and sort things and have it like that. It's like playing the same game, doing the same things, but doing them in distinctly different ways, right? Trying to understand why people do things the way they do, so you can kind of connect and get on the same page and be efficient. That's always a really interesting thing. And I even think about that too, like sometimes when you're loading into like first player games with other people, like I'm thinking about like Battlefield and certain things like that, like the way people would go about creating their loadouts, what they would choose, why they would choose it, different things like that, and how sometimes it would be like, oh, I love playing with this person because their loadout or their kit is very similar to mine, or I like the guns they use too, so I feel more confidence. And then you're loading, someone else, and you're loading with someone else, and they have like, like MP5, and it's like, why do you have an MP5? Like, I don't want this at all. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, if they get whacked, and I got to pick up their MP5, I have a gun that I hate. Mine's all out of ammo. They get whacked. Like, I got to run over and get their gun. Oh, it's an MP5. Okay, well, might as well just shoot me. How can I kill myself? so I can respawn with the right gun. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's always been an interesting thing to think about, how people organize things differently. Set themselves up, what they obviously their likings, but the rationale behind why they do what they do. Well, this gun works for me in this way, or I like the recoil on it, or I like the sight on it. That's the only reason why I use this gun. I understand that it's worse in every way, but I like the sight, and the sight makes me feel like I can be more accurate, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting thing.
I agree.
Well, that leads us to the end of level 134 of the Thoughts and Players podcast. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast on the socials. You're on Facebook. We are on X. We are on TikTok, and we are on Instagram, as well as subscribe to us on your preferred podcast service, like Apple Podcast or YouTube Music or Amazon and some other stuff. And also be sure you can subscribe and follow us on YouTube, where we upload video versions of the podcast. Back to once every week. It's been a little weird this happened, but it will be back to once every week. Also, if you want to support us, a couple ways you can do it. One, buy merch. I have my my Thoughts and Players phone case back on my phone, as you can see in the corner. You might not be able to see. It's been taking some beatings. It's very good, very nice. I've dropped this phone more than any phone I've ever owned. And I'm glad that I have the case on it. You can also support us on Patreon, where we have a $2, a $5, and a $7 tier, all offering different bits of the goodies. That is it for me. David, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next level.